Welcome to the weekly question video. If you want to leave us a question, the easiest way to do that is in the comments, or you can email us. Details on how to do that is in the description box, as well as a link to our Patreon if you want to support what we're doing. Today's question comes from an email that I received, and the question really boils down to, what do you do if you just don't have enough time in your day? So the person that sent me this email basically was describing how they're having a really hard time finding the time to have daily check-ins and regular maintenance and even necessary punishments because of the demands of having young kids, as well as maintaining schedules and making sure they're just getting enough sleep in order to meet those demands of daily life, right? And I totally get that. There are so many life circumstances that can contribute to having less time to devote to the discipline structure of your relationship. We're all going to have those challenges from time to time. So when we do find that time is just not on our side, how can we go about making time or making better use of the time that we have so that we can still have this disciplined structure to our relationship, so that we don't have to put that on the shelf? Because, domestic discipline is such an asset to many of our relationships, and that's not something that we necessarily want to just completely pause or take a step back from, or let the structures and systems that we've put into place kind of fall apart just because we happen to be in a really busy season of life. So my suggestion to this question of what do I do if I just don't have enough time? What do we do as a couple if time is just not on our side? Figure out a way to put some systems into place to where these things don't take as much time. Check-ins don't have to be daily. You can do a weekly check-in if that makes more sense for your schedule. If the Monday through Friday grind of schedules and everything is just way too much to try to fit in time to have an intentional check-in, leave it to the weekends. You can also put systems into place where you are kind of keeping track of anything notable that should be addressed in a check-in. So, if you had a struggle or if you had a success and you want your partner to know about that, just make a note of that. And this can go for taken in hands as well as head of households. Like, as a head of household, if you're like, hey, I noticed that these things haven't been consistent, we should probably talk about that. Just make a little note. That way, when you get into that check-in, you have your bullet point list of things that you want to address. And you don't have to take time trying to remember those things. You don't have to take time, going through your mind, trying to organize your thoughts. You've already organized your thoughts, and that can make that conversation flow a lot faster and be more concise. It can be a quick conversation, and it doesn't have to be super formal. But what about things that do have more formality to them, like maintenance, like punishments and discipline, right? Number one, maintenance. Really evaluate, is maintenance something that you need in your dynamic? Not everybody does. And so if that's just something that you're doing because you think you should, really take a step back and say, is this something that we need to do? Is trying to find the time for maintenance, is that causing more stress? Is that causing more disruption to our relationship than benefit? And so really evaluate, do we really need to have maintenance? If the answer is yes, because again, a lot of couples really do find maintenance to be an important aspect of maintaining their dynamics, then try to evaluate, how often does maintenance need to happen? Again, does it need to happen when you are in the grind of the week? Or can you put that off to Friday night or Saturday night where you don't have that morning routine to worry about waking up to. You can maybe take some time to have a slower morning the next day. So if you're a little tired, it's not as bad. You can also, again, make a list of things that you want to address during maintenance so that you're not having to think of those things on the fly. You can also utilize some non-spanking options for maintenance. I know that for myself, sometimes I will write more of affirming lines, not necessarily that I will not or I should not or all of those things, but more of the affirmations of I will yield to my husband's leadership, something along those lines. And writing that phrase even 25 times can be a form of maintenance. So kind of maybe get a little creative with maintenance. Now, if you really do need the physical outlet of maintenance spanking, because spanking does have its place in that process, again, just think about how can we fit this into our schedule in a way that it doesn't have to take a long time. Spankings really can be as short as like 10-15 minutes. You just have to kind of do the mental prep work before you get to the physical aspect so that it doesn't take a lot of time once you get there. And you can do that mental prep work earlier in the day. You can journal, you can do all of those things, read it right before to kind of remind yourself, get yourself back into that mindset, and then go straight into the physical part of a spanking so that it doesn't take a lot of time. Again, with punishment, my suggestion would be the same, where it's like, okay, maybe you write out an apology, you journal your thoughts, you maybe do some lines or do some form of non-physical punishment before you get into the punishment spanking itself. That way, once you're in the punishment spanking, the lecture before you get into it can be a lot shorter. You're already in that mindset. Again, you can find implements that maybe are a little harsher, a little bit more severe, because then you don't have to have as long of a spanking to get the same result. Now, short spankings versus longer spankings do have their pros and cons. So if you're trying to shorten spankings, it's definitely something to take into consideration, maybe work through, try out, see if it's going to work for you long term to do it that way. Now, I know that this person was also concerned about sound because of having kids in the house, and whether it's kids or a roommate or another family member, there's times when we want to maintain a bit of privacy and not necessarily clue everyone into what we're doing. So if you have no other choice and you have to do spanking in your bedroom and you are worried about the bedrooms around you, or if you're worried about the sound carrying for whatever reason, there are a few things that you can do. Number one is create some noise. And what I mean by that is get a noise maker, a noise machine, even look up a YouTube video of white noise, but kind of create that like background of like a constant humming noise, because it will make the noise of a spanking not so obvious to the ears. This works really well if you are worried about kids waking up, because if you kind of create that like constant drumming noise in the background, they're not going to necessarily wake up to the sound of spanking quite as easily as they would if there was silence. So create that noise first. Put on some So what my husband and I would do when our daughter was younger is we would put that white noise right outside her bedroom door. We would set up a little sound machine, and then we would put some music or something on in our bedroom. So it kind of just created another base level of like expected noise to her ears so that she wouldn't wake up from the sound of the spanking itself. So just kind of create that background noise. Also, you can choose to use some implements that might not be as noisy. So there's definitely implements that sound is very much a part of using that implement. So you want to just look at, can we get away with maybe switching up our implements to something that's not going to be as noisy? All spanking is going to create some level of noise either from the implement or the recipient, but you want to look at what can we do to reduce that noise. So I really hope these suggestions can help you if you are finding yourself in a position where you have to be a little quieter, if you are just kind of not having enough time to really devote a lot of time into the process of check-ins and maintenance and spankings and all of those things. Hopefully you can set up some systems to put into place where these things don't have to take a lot of time, and they can maybe be a little quieter so that you don't have to worry about being overheard and having to maybe answer some awkward questions, right? Anyway, I hope that was helpful, and we will talk to you guys next time.